So here we are at Mansfield Reformatory, a place of a lot of history, a lot of sad history. A lot of people who did some bad things were in here, and so were the prisoners. We're going to be exploring it and talking about it as we continue our journey today. Yeah, I'm looking for a pardon. Looking for a pardon. Mr. Trump asked me to call you. Yeah. He says if you can't give one to him, then at least give one to his friends. Yep. Okay. We'll get back to you later. Yes, Governor. Yeah. Okay.
The statistics are stark, but by now familiar. The United States has less than 5% of the world's people, yet accounts for 25% of the world's prisoners. The incarceration rate in the United States is 7 times higher than the rate in Western Europe, and more than 1 in 100 adults are behind bars today.
The rate of incarceration for African Americans has always been higher than the national average. The steady climb in the rate of incarceration for young black men over the last 30 years has resulted in such a concentration of imprisonment in low-income African American communities that sending those who commit crimes to prison now does more harm than good in those neighborhoods. Researchers confirm that the cumulative effects of mass incarceration, broken families, weakened social bonds, distrust of police, and compromised economic opportunities have reached a tipping point, resulting in an increase rather than a decrease in crime.
Public safety also suffers when financial costs of supporting such a high level of incarceration compromises the ability of local communities to provide a safety net for its most vulnerable residents. We spend nearly $50 billion a year operating prisons, money that could be put to better use strengthening mental health treatment networks, drug treatment programs, and support for parents of at-risk children.
The United States not only has more prisoners locked up than any nation in the world, it has a higher percentage of its citizens locked up than any nation in the world.
Well over 50% of people incarcerated are locked up for non-violent offenses.
Maka.
My name is Michael. I was an inmate in here in 1969, 1970. I came in for something I didn't do. We're all in here. Very true, though. I had been out of my home at a very early age because of a very abusive father. Okay, he drove me and all my brothers out of the home. My dad was a very big man. He was 6'5", 300 pounds, and he used to beat his plate regularly. So we all left at a very early age. I had gotten with a group of guys. We had taken a car. We were joyriding in it, and I got caught. They put us all on probation, which pretty much did it for me. But when I went back home 6 months later, my dad is still doing the same thing, so I left again. And I didn't have anywhere to stay, so I ended up staying with these guys that offered me a place. The only problem was they was stealing car parts, to supplement their income. I had nothing to do with it. I was just staying at their house. And the day the police officers came, I was the only one there. And they took me. And when I went in front of old Judge Morris, my uncle was standing right beside me. He was a Starr County deputy sheriff, and he was telling the judge that I didn't do it. And I still remember his words. He says, "I don't give a damn." He says he knows who did, and he's going to tell me. That was back in the days when you didn't snitch on your buddies, so I didn't tell him. Well, he revoked my probation, and he put that grand larceny charge on me, and he sentenced me here to 2 to 27 for something I didn't do. Okay. When they brought me here, they put me in this cell right here. I spent the first 30 days in that cell, but what I didn't know, the judge had attached a shock probation stipulation onto my charge, which means you come here for 30 days, you see exactly what you're facing, and they'll bring you back within that 30 days, and if you've changed your mind, you want to tell the judge what he wants to know, he will then put you on what's known as shock probation, and you don't have to come back here. Okay? The only problem was my dad was so mad at me, he never came to see me for 2 months. He never called the attorney. The attorney never called him. And all the paperwork that needed to be signed and filed within that 30 days with the courts, it never got done. So day 31, I was totally ineligible for shock probation, and I had to spend 14 months here instead. Okay? I went to school the whole time I was here. I was valedictorian in this place. It's the truth. What else are you going to do? I had a straight 4.0 average. I was a valedictorian. And that's what I did the whole time I was here. I graduated out of here. People want to know what this place was like. It was an absolute hellhole. Okay? Stabbings went on here. Beatings went on here. Guys hung themselves here. We had one guy on the other side in cell 13. He was being pretty much bullied and hassled here, and one night he decided he had enough of it, and he had gotten a hold of some flammable liquid from the maintenance department, and instead of going to dinner, he stayed locked in his cell, and when everyone was gone, he lit himself on fire and burned to death. Okay. We have 219 graves out back of people who came here, died, and never left. Okay. That's just the ones where their bodies were never claimed. Okay. So it was not a nice place at all. Later in the 70s, it became extremely dangerous here when they brought all them guys up from the Ohio Penitentiary. They had an overcrowding problem down there, and they brought those guys up. And that's why you have all this stuff on the bars. We never had that in 1969 when I was here, but they did 2 ranges like that and turned them all into solitary cells. These guys were so dangerous, they wouldn't even let them out. They feed them right through here. Okay. And that's what they did. They wouldn't let them mix in with the younger inmates here. Okay, it was an absolutely crazy place as far as at that time when it was going on. There was a big problem here when I was here between black and white. Okay, you got to remember that was the time Martin Luther King got murdered. Okay, so it was not a good time, between the races. You didn't make many friends here. Okay, I only had 2. One was my cellie that turned out to actually be a lifelong friend. His name was Ron Crabtree. And he was here on an armed robbery charge. He was doing 3 to 36. And when I walked in the cell, I'll never forget, when they took me out of here after day 31, they moved me right up to 3 Southeast, cell 4. That's where I spent the next 12 months. So when I moved up there and I walked in there, he turned around and looked at me with a real disgusted look, and he said, "Let me tell you something, boy." He says, "Don't accept nothing here." He said, "Because nothing's free." And those were his first words to me. Well, he was here. He had absolutely no family. They were all gone, okay? And my mother got wind of that, and halfway through my stay here, she went to the warden here and the people she needed to talk to, and she got it approved for him to have visits with her. So when my mother came, we both visited. She did some amazing stuff I'm going to tell you about. You're going to be amazed what she really did do. She found out that he had no family. And to be paroled from here, you must be paroled to a family member, okay, that will sponsor you. He had none. So she wrote letters to the governor, the warden here, and everybody else that she needed to. And she got it approved for him to be paroled to her. And that's absolute no-no, having two parolees in the same house. How she got that done, I don't really know. And I can't ask her because she's not here. Okay, she's gone. But I wish I had asked her how she accomplished that. But she did get that done. And Ron was a barber here. That's what he did. He learned to be a barber. And he opened up his own shop when he got out. And that's what he did his whole life. Okay? And Ron and I stayed in touch our whole lives. And he died in 2012. Okay? He passed away. Okay. The other inmate that I made friends with here, and there was only one, he celled right beside me. He was black. And I won't mention his name because I haven't flirted with his sister. But he was a very dangerous guy. He was here on 2 manslaughter charges. Okay. He was just a smaller guy. He was only about this tall, but with his hair, he was about this tall. You know? And I used to wonder why everybody walked around him. They didn't, but even the big guys, they just walk around him. They didn't bother him, you know. Well, I became friends with him because my mother used to send me packages, and you could get those, you know, cookies and candy and fudge and stuff, as long as there wasn't any contraband in it. Well, I would always slide him over some. Okay, I'd send him some cookies over, some candy or whatever. He would always give me cigarettes if I was out of cigarettes or whatever. And one time my mom sent me this fudge. It was called Heavenly Fudge. I don't know if anyone's ever made it, but it was real chocolatey, had walnuts in it and all kinds of stuff. And of course, I slid him some over. I remember he used to call me Hump. He goes, Hump. He goes, damn. He says, your white mama sure can make some fudge. Well, I had a few problems with a few black guys here. I was in several fights with them, but the real problem was not with the black guys. It was with the white guys who were up on the 6th. They were an early version of the Aryan Brotherhood. They were skinheads. And they'd already seen me in a couple of fights. And I was a big kid. I was 6'1", 185 pounds, and wasn't taking crap from anybody. So they wanted me to join them. And I told them no. I told them I don't want any part of what you guys are all about. I know what you're going to want me to do. I don't want anything to do with what's going on. Well, they got very, offended by that. And when I'd walk out on the yard, of course, they'd give me the one-finger salute. And, they was always, bad-mouthing me. And one day I was out there, one of them even pulled a shank out and showed me the handle of it, okay? So I went out on the yard one day, and my neighbor was sitting up on the bench, and he said, Hump, he said, come here. So I went up there, and he says, hey, he said, you know them guys over there are after you? And I go, yeah. I said, I know it. I said, I got my eye on them. And he looked at me, and he gave me the biggest smile, and he said, so do I. After that day, I never had another problem. So I don't know exactly what he said and what he did, but I never had another problem from anybody, okay? I stayed in touch with him all my life. He died a few years ago, and I went down south to his funeral. And, of course, I walked in, I was the only white guy in the place. And they're all looking at me like, you sure you got the right place? And his sister saw me, and she came over and gave me a huge hug, and then everybody was happy with me. I had such a good time, I stayed down there an extra 3 days from house to house to house, and I ate some of the best barbecue in the world. I had a great time with these people, okay? So those are 2 lifelong buddies. They're the only 2 buddies that I made when I was here that had anything to do with it. As dangerous as this place was, they were all about rehabilitation. And they had some of the best trades and trade shops here. You could become a carpenter here, a finish carpenter, a rough carpenter. You could become a welder here. They had a furniture plant here. You could make furniture, okay? They had a big boiler back here. You could get your boiler license if you wanted to. They had pro sports here, or pro sport scouts that came here to watch the baseball players, and we had a few of them that were drafted by the majors, okay? You could get your pilot's license here. They had an automotive shop. You could become an automotive mechanic here if you wanted to. For a while, they even had locksmithing classes, but they discontinued those after a while. We don't want any more of that. The whole thought behind it was they wanted you to leave a lot better than you came. You have to remember we were just young kids that didn't have professions, didn't have trades. But if you come here and spend 2 or 3 or 4 years, as long as you're here, and now you leave here as a master carpenter or a mason, okay, bricklayer, whatever, chances are you can go out and get a job, and a job making good money, okay? You know, a bricklayer makes $30 an hour. Well, the theory behind it was, well, you're probably not going to come back here. You're not going to be out breaking into people's houses or stealing cars or whatever the case may be, because you now have a good job, you got self-worth, you got some self-respect. And the residual rate coming back here was very, very low, okay, as far as people coming back here. They just didn't do it, okay? Well, there were some, but not like the prisons today, where prison's more of a playhouse than it is an actual prison. Because the guards here were in charge. You need to remember that. They didn't play games with you here, okay? Now, we had a few bad guards here that they used to carry them little black nylon head knockers. And they hit you with those things, and they didn't leave marks. But there were times when we heard cells open up at 2 in the morning and somebody getting their rear end beat, okay? They just didn't play back then. The guys had a special way of getting even with them, though. And these guys worked in the kitchen. Now, these guards were either too stupid or too cheap to bring their lunches and dinners, so they would eat over in the cafeteria with us. And those boys were doing some creative cooking. They were taking a leak in the mystery soup, the vegetable soup. And I ain't even going to tell you what they were doing in the mashed potatoes, okay? But I was very fortunate. I knew somebody over there. And I would go walking through, and I'd have my tray, and, you know, I'm hungry. I stop in front of the soup, and I look at it, and I look over, and he go. So I'd move on down to the mashed potatoes and gravy and stuff. I'd look at it, and I'd look over, and he'd go. Sometimes I get all the way down, and I have a piece of bread and a carton of milk. So I had to come back to the cell and eat chips or Fritos, whatever I had in the commissary, and that's what I ate. And the guards would go through there, and they'd get a big bowl of vegetable soup, and then they'd pile on the mashed potatoes and everything, and them guys would just smile, okay? When they walked the cell block, so it wasn't really a problem. I left here in September of 1970, and I never came back here for 30 years. I hated this place so bad. I had nightmares about this place for 4 years after I left here. I used to wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, and I could hear this place and I could smell this place, and I had to get out of bed just to turn on the light to make sure that I still wasn't here anymore. After 4 years, they stopped, okay? But I never came back. I was actually driving by here in year 2000, and I seen a small sign out there that said OSR Tours. Well, I hadn't thought about this place in a long time. So curiosity took over, and I came down. And the minute I walked through the doors, I mean, I was ready to turn around and walk back out. It all came flooding back to me. But some people here knew me. So they wanted to talk to me about helping with the restoration, which, you know, I wasn't all about that, okay? But I did finally agree to help do some tours. But I never told anybody that I was an inmate here, because I was still ashamed of being a former inmate here, even though I didn't do anything. And I walked through with this one group, and they were young, and they were blowing off about how they should have just horsewhipped these guys. They should have just hung them and been done with them, and they'd been better off. And after that tour, I told them I wasn't coming back. You know, I've been gone for 30 years. I don't need this crap, and I'm not coming back. Of course, they wanted me to, and I said no. So they finally wanted me to agree to see an attorney when I left here about getting a pardon from the governor. And I never ever dreamed that I was eligible for any kind of pardon. I thought that was for like death row inmates and stuff, and last minute appeals. But I did agree to do that. And I did keep my word. I went to see an attorney, and he pretty much laughed at me. Okay, he said, "Do you have any idea what it takes to get a pardon. And he said, especially with this governor, because he doesn't give pardons. He said, but if you want me to try, he said, I require a $10,000 down payment, and I don't promise you anything. So I just said, I'll get back to you on that one, you know. And I went home and I Googled the pardon process in Ohio. And they have a whole packet that they'll send you that you can file for your own pardon. You don't need an attorney. So I sent for that, it came, and I was ready to rock and roll, but when I got to looking at it, they wanted names and dates and case numbers, and you know, it's been 30 plus years. I don't remember any of that kind of stuff, okay? So I pretty much resolved myself to the fact that it wasn't going to happen, okay? And just left it sit. When we're all done, I'll tell you what happened to me. I want to introduce you to JD. JD was here in 1986. Cells in here, therefore there's only 35 in a row instead of 50. There's only 5 tiers, okay, instead of 6. This is the original one they started in 1876, and you know, it took 10 years to complete this prison. A lot of the inmates that were in here helped work on the other side too. This side was never electrified, the other side was, okay. We have a manual lock that would go from here to here. And part of the reason they did that is to get the guys out in the morning that needed to be out for the kitchen and things like that, the early morning guys. The guys that cell over here were all the older guys, all the more settled down guys, the guys that had the longer sentences and the good jobs.
If I had one wish, I know exactly what it would be.
I wish my family could stay here together.
I wish my mom could always be with me.
I wish my dad could be with me again.
I wish I won't have to be afraid anymore.
In America, we believe every child deserves a fair shot at achieving his or her full potential. That's why no child should have to live in fear of losing a parent, simply because of a parent's immigration status.
We can do better. We can do better.
We can do better.
We can keep families together and provide all children with the stability and support they need to grow up healthy and contribute to the future of our country. Visit thisismyamericanstory.org to learn more.
Speaking of incarceration, the Trump administration, through its zero-tolerance policy, has been locking up immigrants and refugees who are supposed to be protected by international law. As part of that, they have separated at least 3,000 children from their parents. In spite of a court order, most of those families have still not been reunited. All over our nation, including here in Cleveland, there have been demonstrations in support of those families.
Thank you all so much for coming out on a Saturday morning, showing your support for such an important cause, taking a stand, devoting your time and energy to stand up for what you fight for and what you believe for, right? Love it. So we got an amazing list of speakers on the agenda for y'all today. But first, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about my experience, what brought me here. I'm sure you'll find a lot of similar experiences in your guys' backgrounds. My name is Javier Espitia. I am a first-generation American born to Mexican immigrant parents. My parents started coming over the border when they were 13 years old, never got more than a second grade education in Mexico. They were undocumented for basically my entire childhood. Same goes for my 2 older brothers. And we just came here to work hard, bust our butts, go to school, and try to make our own version of the American dream, and that's exactly what we did. My dad always used to say, "Mijo, tú y mi mamá Vinimos para trabajar duro para que tú no tuvieras trabajar como nosotros. That means, son, your mom and I came here to work backbreaking jobs and construction and the farms and the fields and the Arizona heat so you and your brothers could study, go to school, and have options. And that's exactly what they did, and that's the sense of sacrifice, of service that brought me here, that has brought you all here today. I know y'all are a very expressive bunch, and y'all have some things you guys want to get off your chest. So let's get something off our chest together to start this right. So join me all in the first chant. We'll go word for word, and then all together at once. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. Now all together, the whole thing on 3. 1, 2, 3. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. I love it. Jeff Sessions has no idea what we were just saying, but he knows he hates it. All right, so now for our first speaker of the day. That'll be the lead organizer of this event, representing Families Belong Together Cleveland. Before I bring this amazing lady up, she took the courageous step to decide to host this whole rally. This magnificent event got this amazing turnout. So please, a warm round of applause for April Berg.
Hey guys! Excuse my notes. Good morning everybody, and thank you for being here at the Families Belong Together rally. My name is April Berg, and like all of you, I am here to make my voice heard, my tears felt, and my anger directed productively towards 3 issues. Reuniting families. Those torn apart at the southern border. Hello, hello. Stopping the Ohio raids carried out by ICE that are tearing apart families right here at home. And calling for an immigration system that values human dignity. We have a problem in Washington, we have a problem at our southern border, and we have a problem right here in Ohio. Who am I? I am every one of you. I am feeling outraged and helpless watching as this administration systematically abuses those who are escaping the worst circumstances imaginable, trying to bring their children out of harm to safety. Who among us wouldn't do everything and anything to save our children and give them the best possible future? Who wouldn't do that? There are so many grassroots organizations to get involved with that I didn't even know existed until they reached out to me, seeing that I had hit that submit button, and thank God for them, because this would not be happening without them. So look for organizations like Action Together Lakewood area, America's Voice Ohio, Cleveland Jobs with Justice, Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus, District 14 Voice, Indivisible Cleveland, IRTF Cleveland, Lorain County Rising, Planned Parenthood, and Advocates of Ohio, and others. Find your voice, express it. We can't just sit back as children are being abused and traumatized. We cannot take it. We cannot take it, and we're not going to take it. So I was told I need a chant. So this isn't a chant, but I'm hoping most of you know this. Are you ready? Yeah. We're not gonna take it. Who knows this? No, we ain't gonna take it. We're not gonna take it anymore. not gonna take it. No, we ain't gonna take it. We're not gonna take it anymore. That should be our battle cry. Thank you guys all so much for being here.
Okay. As I'm sure you're all aware, there was recently a raid in Sandusky at Corsos. I've personally been doing a few trips. I've been there every weekend since it happened. I had the pleasure of meeting an incredible woman there, whose name I will not use. I will use an assumed name to protect her identity and privacy. Her name is Maria. She has a 17-year-old son who has DACA and a husband who is undocumented, and they both worked at Corsos. She also has an 8-year-old son and a 4-year-old son who are United States citizens. So the 17-year-old graduated from high school the Sunday before the Corsos raid, and he worked at Corsos with his dad there. When the raid occurred, he got to see his dad taken away in person, but they didn't touch him because he had DACA. He had just graduated high school, and his response was to work more hours to help his family make ends meet and save up for college starting this fall. Can you imagine seeing that firsthand and then responding in that way? It just so happens that his little brothers, 8 and 4 years old, are U.S. citizens, and now anytime they hear a knock on the door, they run and hide in their own home. That kind of trauma caused for no good reason. Like, what was the purpose, right? So I thought I'd want to share that with y'all. And now we have some amazing speakers from Corsos. The group is called Los Niños de Corsos. They are here representing families that were directly affected by that raid. People who have brothers, sisters, mothers detained to this day. And they're here to talk a little bit about their experiences and how they've reacted. So please, another warm round of applause and welcome for Natalia Alonso and Juan Perez for Los Niños de Corsos.
Thank you guys for being here. It's really amazing how you guys are all here and how much you guys care. But here we have our group called Los Niños de Corsos. And we also have a Facebook page if you guys want to contact us and like donate stuff to find out where our next help out is going to be at.
Los Niños de Corsos is a youth group that directly gives families their needs and their requests. What we have is a Facebook page where anybody can message us or get daily updates of what we're doing and how people can help us out. Today we will we have a speaker from Norwalk. His name is Juan Perez. He will speak about his experience today. Hopefully hopefully you all sort of understand of his experience. So here's Juan Perez.
Hi, how's it going? Oh wow, this is a giant crowd. There was a rally back in Norwalk and there was maybe around 60, 70 people. Now this is humongous and it just makes me so proud. It's awesome to see so many people. It's awesome to see so many people believe in what I believe in, care what I care in, and do what I am trying to do. My name is Juan Perez, and I'm the son of 2 undocumented workers. I have a little brother and a little sister. And, well, my mom's taken away. And it was a horrible experience to have to go through. The day started off as me waking up and thinking it's going to be somewhat of a good day. It's summer vacation, and I'm going to have my little brothers and sisters and do what I want. My mom went to work, and my dad went to work. But then I get a phone call from my dad. He's scared, and he says they have my mom. She's not coming home. So they say, close the windows, lock the doors, hide under your bed. Don't let them find you. And so of course, I do what he says. I close the doors, I lock the windows, and I get my brother and sister, and I put them under my bed, hiding from them. I'm just keep thinking of my mom, and they took her. How could I let this happen? It's horrible what we have to go through all the time. They're taking families apart. They're taking kids from parents, and they're taking the parents from the kids.
Love you. We love you.
I'm going to try to explain what happened that day from my dad's perspective. My dad says that was a normal day. There was some people dressed up as workers, and they were passing out donuts. They were saying that they're giving out donuts, free donuts. And so all the workers go around there because they're hungry, of course. But once they got into one space, what they knew changed and traumatized them forever. They were surrounded by ICE workers, ICE officers. There were dogs everywhere, people with machine guns, helicopters, people hiding in the forest. It was horrible what they did. They were arresting 114 people, one of those being my mom, and a bunch of people that I knew my whole life. They took families apart. I could see kids crying, parents having their kids taken from them.
All right. Love you.
I have it bad because they took my mom, and my dad was taken 2 years ago, but he's back now. He's still waiting for court. What I'm thinking right now is there are kids that are worse than I do. There's a little baby girl who her dad was taken away. That dad is not going to see her little baby girl take her first steps, her first words, her first day of school. That baby girl is not going to see her dad maybe her whole life, who knows? And that mom is going to have to work harder than ever to support for her baby. Someone's going to have to take care of the baby, someone's going to have to work. It's all too much for one woman. And think about that. They're going to go into poverty, they're going to lose a house, all that stuff, and it's horrible. The place where I live, back in Norwalk, there are people that have no parents. There are some that have lost their children. There is a woman that lost her daughter over there, and her son couldn't take it. He lost his life, and now that lady's living there. Her son taken away from her, and then her daughter also. One can't imagine what that goes through, what that does to someone. Next year, I might not be here in this country again. My dad, they're going to be taking him to court February 18th, 2019 in this very city. In the courthouse right over there. And they're going to decide if he gets to stay or go. If they take my mom and they take my dad, it's either me going to foster care with my brother and sister or me going back to them. My dad right now is working, still working in Corsos, saving up money to get my mom out. It turns out you can get someone out of there for $10,000 though. And there's someone working at Corsos for not that much of money and still having to support 3 kids. He's having to work so hard and having to get my mom out. And we're still having to waste some of that money on taxes and food and all that. And my dad isn't home that much anymore because of it. Not only did I lose a mom, I also lost a dad that day. My dad now has to work from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. My mom, I don't get to see her often. I don't get to see her at all, actually. And I only get to talk to her maybe at least once in a week. And that's horrible. 15 minutes only talking to my mom a week. I cherish every one of those minutes talking to my mom, and I keep thinking, they took her from me. How did I let this happen?
We'll fight with you. We'll fight with you.
Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you.
Thank you all for hearing Juan's story. I want to share a story of someone that can't be here today. Her name is Gaden. Her dad is currently detained. She is currently living with us. I just want to tell you all what she does. Okay. Gaden is only 8 years old, and the first night she came to us, she didn't want to sleep by herself. She prayed that her dad would come back and that everything would go back to normal. Now, you know, there's a bunch of kids that are going through that right now. It's not just her. And Gaden, before anything happened, she was always upbeat, happy, running all over the place, swimming in the pool. But now she's on the couch, waiting for her dad, waiting for him to come through those doors. But yeah, these kids, they didn't do anything to deserve this. These kids, they're innocent. Nobody expects this to happen. And there's a lot of kids, not only in Norwalk, not only in Freshmark, but all around. And basically, they need to know that people love them, people support them. Now, I'm not a politician, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know much about the law, but one thing I do know is separating families is inhumane. Now, there has been a lot of negativity about our page and what we do. I just want to tell people, you know, put the religion aside, put the politics aside. These are kids of today. We need to support them.
I am a Syrian American. I am Muslim. Last year, this administration began its racist policy to ban people from certain Muslim majority countries coming to the United States. And on Tuesday, the U.S. Supreme Court said that this was okay in order to supposedly protect our country. Had this ban been in place 40 years ago, my parents would not have been able to immigrate here, and I would not be standing here today with my children. Had this ban been in place, my Syrian American husband would not have been able to move here as a child, and his family, his tribe of Syrian doctors, would not have been serving countless patients in the Cleveland area for decades. We are a critical part of this country, and we are not going anywhere. This administration's anti-immigrant agenda has hit rock bottom. Mothers at the border are having their babies ripped away from them in the very moment they are seeking safety and protection. People who were here legally for decades under humanitarian programs like TPS are being told they are now out of luck. People from countries like Syria, suffering the worst humanitarian catastrophe of our time, are now banned. We are turning our backs on the most vulnerable people suffering from war, violence, and torture, who until now were protected under our immigration laws. Where is our humanity, America? Where? As an immigration lawyer, my heart breaks every day for my clients, my friends, and family from the now banned countries. A gentleman and his fiancée waiting to start their life together. A mother waiting for her 2 children to join her in the U.S. A son trying to bring his elderly parents here and out of harm's way in war-torn Syria. These are Americans who did everything right under the law and patiently waited to bring their loved ones here. But now they will remain separated. Why are we keeping families apart? Do you feel safer, America? No! Family reunification is part of our nation's nation's immigration laws. It is a critical part of this country, and we cannot let them get rid of it that easy. Even when our own system of checks and balances fails us like it did this week, we have to keep going. We have to stand together. Please speak up for your immigrant friends and share their stories. Tell them their struggle is your struggle. Stand with your Latino brothers and sisters. Stand against Muslim bigotry. And please teach your children to do the same. Get our communities to vote. It doesn't matter what you do as long as you are doing something. Anything. Let's do it together. Thank you all for being here. Bye, Cleveland. Thank you.
So I shouldn't even have to stand here today. I'm really upset about that because I don't think any of this should be happening, but because it is, I'm standing here today to kind of humanize and get some empathy together. Nobody should have to go through this. Nobody should have to go through this. Anybody who's worked with children and families that have been forcibly separated or have been abused and traumatized never forgets that experience. No child that has to go through being separated from their parents forcibly will forget that experience. It's something that happens on U.S. soil right now that is unacceptable. There's nothing acceptable about this. It's amazing that there are so many people here today to talk about it, but it breaks my heart. Elizabeth Warren made a post about going to a detention center in Texas. The way she described the children in the middle of the afternoon, listless, no toys, not emoting anything. These are early trauma reactions in young children. This is not okay. No toys? One thing that we know in the mental health field that helps children process trauma and not have as many symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder is being able to play. These children aren't even able to play. What are we doing? These are other human beings, and this is not okay. Where are the children? Who is keeping account of them? Where are their families? How often do they get to communicate with their parents? Where are the children? Who is keeping accountable for them? Where are their parents? All our brains are wired the same from birth. All human beings react to trauma the same way. If this had happened to us when we were young, we would be reacting in very similar ways. We knew this in behavioral patterns decades ago. In behavioral science, we know it now with mapping of the brains and how it affects the wiring of how we react, what happens, how we build relationships and attach to other people, how we control our impulses. What do you think that's going to do to all these children that don't know where their families are? The recent judges ruling, 14 days, 10 days, certain age groups, the damage is already happening right now. Right now, the damage is happening. 14 days. Any child separated forcibly or otherwise from a primary caregiver under the age of 3 is a severe risk for developing trauma and reactive attachment disorder, diagnosable symptomology. Under the age of 3. You're giving us a ruling in 2 weeks? From when? How long have these kids already been away from their families? This isn't good enough. It's not okay. Okay. Not okay. Not okay. Not okay. Not okay. Not okay. So I've seen this on a much lesser scale in my professional life. I am a mother who is lucky enough to have her children, and as long as I have a voice, I'm going to use it. There are too many people who don't have the ability to do this. You have the privilege to use your voice. and you know that this isn't okay. And there's people out there saying, but what about the people that are bringing them across the border? I don't care about any of that. These are human beings. They're being mistreated anywhere they go. Thank you.
At Teresa, when a new child comes, everything seems strange to him. What? On the ground I have to lie? Eat black potatoes? No, not I. I've got to stay? It's dirty here. The floor. Why look, it's dirt. I fear. And I'm supposed to sleep on it? I'll get dirty. Hear the sounds of shouting cries and oh so many flies. Everyone knows flies carry disease. Oh, something bit me. Wasn't that a bed bug? Here in Terezin, life is hell. And when I'll go home again, I can't yet tell. Teddy, 1943. This poem was written by a child in Theresienstadt ghetto during the Holocaust. In my teens, I went from Cleveland to Prague and visited this ghetto. As a Jew, you grow up learning about the Holocaust. But being a teenager, standing in a room where children younger than you suffered in a way you can't imagine, that will both break your heart and make you promise. Promise to advocate that all children will feel and be safe, a feeling in existence that these children were robbed of. There are few survivors of the Holocaust left, and these survivors witnessing what we're doing as a country, how we are detaining and separating children, how we are treating humans without humanity, it seems unimaginable and it is inexcusable. That's not what America is. That's definitely not what the America that they found a safe haven is. And no, how we as Jews feel about immigration started long before the atrocities of the Holocaust. How we feel is written by Jewish poet Emma Lazarus for all to see on our Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning for free. And if you want to go further back, all the way back, our responsibility to welcome immigrants can also be read in the Torah. You shall not wrong or oppress a stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Exodus 22:20. Growing up in Cleveland in the 1980s, I went to Jewish day school, and every day we were welcoming children immigrating from Russia, or as I got to call them, my classmates and my friends still to this day. Our religion, our country, and this city is known for saying welcome. And as a white woman standing here with privilege, it is my job more than anybody to lead the fight. We don't leave it to the And so as we continue to fight for what is right, continue to get frustrated, continue to figure out how to do our part, I leave you with these words from Rabbi Tuchman. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Yes.
She's going to help us illustrate. I know y'all are fired up, and the city up to
I live on the near west side. I would like you to wake up my children with your voices, all right? You know this one. No hate, no fear. Immigrants are welcome here. 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 No hate, no fear. Immigrants are welcome here.
I am an African American and a black preacher who comes out of a tradition of justice, equality, and love. A tradition that says, love thy neighbor and yes, the immigrant. I have come against separation, especially separating children from their parents. I have come to say injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I come today with the spirit of black solidarity for all of the black activists and freedom fighters in this city and around the world for this movement. A black people who have faced separation from our land, separation from our culture, separation from our freedom, separation of our children from their parents, the cruel brutality of separation on a slave box. We understand and we are with you. I am here representing activists and freedom fighters who fight against separation and injustice every day. Separation of the poor from care and opportunity. Separation of students from quality schools. Separation of black boys from justice in the courts. Separation of the homeless from low-income housing. Separation of the sick from quality health care. I have come to say enough is enough. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Not long ago, Dr. King was asked about his civil rights movement, and he said it was more about redeeming the soul of America. We have come today to redeem the soul of America. The soul of America from hate. We continue to redeem the soul of America. My shirt says, stay woke. My shirt says, stay woke. Open your eyes and debunk the fake news. Our children are being oppressed. Wake up, freedom fighters, for these kids. Wake up. We are woke. Donald Trump of that day, Bull Connor, he messed up when he messed with the kids and when he turned the hoses on the kids. America. And when we wake up, we vote. When we wake up, we turn a movement into a movement. When we wake up, we lift our voices and we continue to stand for the least of these.